Welcome back, everybody, to the Predictive Playbook. This is Manny's Irish Pub Edition. It's the funnest place to be to get your sports betting information. I'm your host, John Ryan. After a little bit of technical trouble, which I guess in the technological age goes hand in hand, we are live with you guys, so we appreciate you hanging around to wait. And it looks like a lot of you did wait, so we appreciate that very much. Big shout out to the chat room for hanging in there. I have Jimmy Adams Vegas on today as the regular Tuesday guest here on June 29, 2021. We're almost into July, which means July 4th is coming up. And after July 4th, my thoughts turn to football. Tony Mejia's on board, and if you see him going like this, he's watching the soccer.
Yes.
He's watching the soccer. He's not checking
right.
for bugs on his ceiling. He's actually going to give us updates on the soccer game. And this morning, Adam Cimber was on the regular show, and he gave out Ukraine. And I have no idea how they're doing. So I hope they're doing well since I just mentioned that.
Well, I hope they're not, but it's 1-1. And I'm on the Swedish side. So far in the second half, Ukraine went up 1-0. Sweden tied it before halftime. And second half, Ukraine's hit the post once. Sweden's hit the post twice. So it's been a good half, still 1-1, about 10 minutes to go.
You know, when you said that on the backstage, Tony Mejia, I'm going to have to tell you this because I know Rob Veno would remember this. And this was when we were kids. It was, remember Gene Hart of the Flyers? He was the announcer, very famous guy. And his co-host was Don Earl, who was a former defensiveman for the Flyers. I believe it was a playoff game against Boston. And all of a sudden, Gene Hart was very emotional, like Merrill Reese of the Eagles. Yeah, when he does the games, and it's all emotion. And Gene Hart, you hear this, "Shot score!" And it wasn't a score, and it hit the post. And Don Earl actually said it hit the post. It hit the beeping post. And it was yes. And this has to be late 70s. Because I was pretty young, because it was like the first time in my life I ever heard that word. And it was dead silence. Dead silence. And finally, it was along the line, Gene Hart said something, "Well, we are live on the air." And that was it. But I'll never forget hearing that. It hit the post. I don't think that's ever been said again.
Oh, there's been gaffes, I'm sure. But let's get moving because I know Jimmy's got to go. We gotta get zooming through the show.
You got it, man. Jimmy has a free play in baseball. It's in the game between the Red Sox and the Kansas City Royals. And I'm going to tee this up for him real quick. We have let me get it here. Boy, this is ridiculous. There we are. 7:10 tonight at Fenway Park, Boston, Massachusetts. It's going to be 97 degrees at game time. So make sure if you're going to the game, drink a lot of water. Nick Pivetta will be on the hill. He'll be going up against Brad Keller, who's 6-8 with a 6.39 ERA. Nick Pivetta is much better, 6-3 with a 4 ERA, which is high for him. Boston is 2.16 favorite after opening at about 180. If I remember correctly, over-under is 10.5. It was 11 yesterday. What do you see for this game, Jimmy?
Yeah, so like you said, line got absolutely steamed. It was minus 180 last night, up to 210 this morning, maybe even a little higher. I wouldn't have given out minus 180 anyways because that's way too high a juice. So I bet it personally at a run line at even money. And we have two teams headed in opposite directions, a bet on team and a fade team, a situation I love. The books obviously know it as well, and that's why it's juiced so high, and we've seen so much money coming in on the Red Sox, which is why we are going to play the run line, which I don't think we'll have much trouble cashing. Boston, like I said, in great current form. They've won 4 straight and 5 of 7, including a sweep of the Yankees over the weekend. They won the first game in this series 6-5 yesterday. But most of those runs that the Royals scored came off of Garrett Richards, a guy who's been struggling for whatever reason over his last 4 starts now. we've got Nick Pivetta on the mound today, coming off somewhat of a no-hit performance himself, although he didn't complete it. He went 6.2 innings versus the Rays with no hits, no runs, and the Red Sox had a combined no-hitter going into the 8th in that game. But Boston's not having trouble scoring either. 6, 9, 4, and 5 runs scored in their last 4 games. And then you got the Royals, who are a pure bet against commodity right now. They've lost 6 in a row and 13 of 16. Brad Keller, like you mentioned, 6.39 ERA on the season. He's allowed 4 runs, 5 runs, 7 and 5 in his last 4 starts. And his second to last start, he allowed 5 runs to these very same Red Sox. So the Red Sox know him. They know how to hit him. They're clicking. The offense is clicking. Nick Pivetta is clicking. And so a play on the run line at a good price seems to be where I'll be headed today. And I advise my clients to do the same.
That sounds real good, Jimmy. And if you haven't read the ad on the bottom, the promotion here, Sportsman was running a special promotion for Jimmy because he's been cruising on autopilot in Major League Baseball action. Jimmy, what is your current streak at now?
We're 68.1% since May 7th. So,
and that's spanning about 90 plays.
Yeah, it's a lot of plays.
It's a lot of plays. So that's pretty darn good, in my opinion. I'm sure Tony Mejia would agree. So for $69 using promo code Jimmy69 at the checkout at sportsmemo.com, you can get 7 days, which, if my math is right, is less than $10 per day. One of Jimmy's plays is $25 alone. So please take advantage of this. And if you haven't gotten his picks, get a week. Don't get one pick. Don't buy people's 5-unit or 10-unit pick, because the tendency is, if it doesn't win, then it's natural, it's human nature to get upset with that and think, well, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. When in essence, in reality, the guy really does know what he's doing, and you miss out on 7 days, 30 days, the whole season, just because of one game that lost that just might have been bad luck. And I can't emphasize that enough. So make sure you get over there and take advantage of that with Jimmy Adams Vegas.
Yeah, jump on board. Thanks for having me. I got to run today, but I'm going to keep on listening as I head out the door, because I'm interested on Tony Mejia's take on the Hawks game and what's going on with Trae Young and all that. So thanks, guys. And Tony, we'll get a winner for tonight, hopefully, or maybe a prop or something, whatever you got. So,
no doubt,
thanks.
Jimmy. All right. Good luck tonight, bud.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Well, let me tell you, John, that the game is over in regulation. So 1-1, they go to extra time. That means if you bet a straight bet, you pushed. If you bet the 3-way money line on Sweden, which I didn't, I bet the straight bet, so I just pushed. But if you bet straight up Ukraine or straight up Sweden, you lost. Draw, you won.
So I think Adam Trigger had Ukraine plus a quarter, plus 0.25.
Okay, so then he gets a half win.
Right, he wins. Yeah, right.
He gets half his money back, or half his investment as a profit. But yeah, no, it's interesting because you don't really see people bet soccer very often in the United States. Obviously, overseas, this is not something that you need to explain. But here you kind of do, and then. Most people just are used to betting, all right, I want this team to win. Well, you have 2 options in soccer. You can bet it the way I just explained, where it's pick 'em, but for less of a return. However, that covers you if there is a push, which in this case there was, or you could bet it. And this morning it was, let's use Westgate, plus $1.25 for Sweden, plus 240 for Ukraine, and plus 225 for the draw. So the people that won on that form of betting were the 2.25s on the draw. And you have to be pretty ballsy to bet a draw. But, the fact that these teams were fairly evenly matched coming in, Sweden's a little bit of a favorite because, they won Group E. Ukraine stumbled through their group, actually only won 1 of 3 matches to get here, and actually needed Sweden's help to get to this point. So it was interesting to see them go up early. Sweden definitely had more of the concrete chances in the second half, but the woodwork denied them twice. So That would have been really nice for me. It would have been at 4% cash, and I really needed it because I've been struggling over the last few days. But we will take not losing for once, which is good. So
it's always better than losing, that's for sure.
It is. So now they'll play 2 15-minute halves. If they're still tied, going to penalty kicks. Winner gets England in Rome this weekend, and obviously England is beside itself with joy today after a historic win over Germany 2-0 at Wembley. Oh, you can't hear me. All right.
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. Who knows? Somebody's hacked into our system, I guess. I don't know.
Yes.
But
I was just saying the winner here gets England. And then obviously England was the story of the day, beating Germany 2-0 at Wembley. And a game that was scoreless and entering the 80th minute. Could have been anybody's match. Actually, Germany had the better chances. And then Sterling scored for England. And Thomas Muller, who never misses shots like the one he made, had a breakaway, missed it. And a couple minutes later, England put the game away. So just goes to show you that's them breaks in soccer. Same thing with France. France had a 3-1 lead yesterday, and I had big on the French. That's my biggest loss of this tournament. They were down 1-0 for a good while, and then I thought I was sitting pretty. They scored 2 goals in less than a minute, and then found the net again on a Pogba strike, and up 3-1. You never would have imagined that they would have They would have blown that lead to Switzerland, but. Swiss miss.
Yeah, there you go. Reminds me of Steve Merrill for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that not rubbing salt in the wound here, Tony, but that was the first time ever a team that was down 2 or more goals after the 80-minute mark came back to win, and it's just mind blowing. I mean, your bet was clearly the right one to make. France is definitely the better team. Hands down, for whatever reason.
You know what, John? I bet it this way. I bet it, and it's somewhat irresponsible, but other times it's not, because I didn't want to push, and it was France laying a goal, and I said, well, if they win by a goal, I still want this win. I can't see them losing, so it ended up being minus 150, a 4% play, which loses 6. So it was a really big loss. But it was one of those things where you're up 3-1, 80th minute rolls around, and they're not killing time the way they should be. Really playing lax defense, and they set up a really relaxed cross that was headed in, and it was 3-2. And I said, all right, good. I'm glad I did what I did. Now let's kill off these last 10 minutes. And again, irresponsible defending in the midfield, and Pogba, who played the best game out of anybody on the entire field, gave up possession. Like he should have gotten rid of it. He was dancing around with the ball. You could have said that potentially he got fouled, but I'm not going to cry on that. And then Switzerland turned that into a really pretty goal to send the game into extra time and kill everybody that had the French, which was most people.
Yeah, but it was kind of like the day before with Switzerland playing.
No, it's Switzerland, France. That's the game.
So what was the day before? Italy. No, was it?
Well,
there was one that was
your game.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. That's the one thing. I'm learning the name of the teams. But I'm really starting to enjoy this now that I understand more and more and more about the game. I just never had the time
to. It's been a fun tournament. Like, it's really featured a lot of stuff. They say that it's had the most own goals, as many own goals in this tournament. And now they saddle goalies with own goals where they used to not do that. But it's still as many own goals in this tournament as there had been in every other tournament combined. So I believe it's at 8. Wow. And then we got missed penalty kicks left and right. Only Cristiano Ronaldo hasn't missed, I think. It's just been pretty wild tournament. And then we had our first penalty kicks, obviously, yesterday with one of the best players in the world, Kylian Mbappe, being the GOAT, for France. So just wild, absolutely wild. And I'll periodically look here, but now my interest is not as intense with the results and betting results and having been known.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. It really is. I think some of the guys that are on the show have learned a little bit about the PGA Tour, and some of us, speaking for myself, have learned a lot more about the Euro 2020 soccer and all the different leagues and how it all intertwines and works. And I can see why it's so hugely popular on a global basis now. It's obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to, like, if you're a real big baseball fan, the World Baseball Classic, and then because they still only, like, we're getting this bombarded with it because of the pandemic and the fact that, normally this would have already happened last year and everybody would be talking about Copa America. Well, now these tournaments are going on simultaneously. And then our tournament, our North American tournament, the Gold Cup, starts on July 11th. So we'll go from these two tournaments wrapping up to rooting for the United States right into that, or Canadians rooting for Canada. And on down the line, Jamaica, Costa Rica, those nations. So it'll be fun. It definitely passes the time in the summer, and then we get the Olympics. So
I can't wait for the Olympics.
Lots of stuff. You bet on the Olympics?
I never have, but just because I swam and ran at a pretty high level, the Summer Olympics are the attraction to me, and specifically those two events. The 800, the 1500, and then in swimming it would be a lot of events, but the 200 individual medley was my forte. And back when I was considered to be pretty elite, none of us, you could have asked any one of us if it was humanly possible to swim at the times they're swimming at now, and we would have said absolutely not.
Right.
There have been rule changes, like in backstroke, you're allowed to roll over on your stomach at the turn, and we used to do that in practice. And coach would scream at us, and of course, I was one of the ones that I would get tired and lazy, and I would just do it and put up with getting yelled at. But now it's legal, and it makes it a lot faster. And they're wearing different bathing suits. The technology is different. The starting blocks are designed so that they can get a much bigger, more powerful, streamlined dive into the pool. And the sport has evolved like no other sport. The times are just ridiculously fast, and they just keep getting faster. So eventually, I guess it'll find a point like golf. I mean, you can only shoot so low, and now the key is to shoot low 4 days in a row, which I don't think the golfing guys will ever allow that.
Well,
it will be fun to see.
We'll look forward to your in-depth breakdowns of the 800 and all the swimming races.
It's interesting because Rowdy Gaines is the co-host. Yes. He's kind of like the color man. You know that name.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit ahead of my time, but he was kind of one of those guys that broke through the wall in the sprints and set the new standard for the 50 and the 100. And a great guy to have doing I think he is doing the Olympics too. He was doing the U.S. Olympic qualifiers. And it's just fun to see his commentary and everything that's going on with it. And of course, diving is ridiculous. I never watched diving during the dual meet season, Tony. And when we got to nationals, I would always watch it because I wasn't worried about anybody hitting the board. Everybody was great. And I don't know if you ever jumped off a 10-meter platform before.
No.
But when those divers hit the water, they are going about 35 miles an hour. And that's why when they do it right and you hear that rip through the water, that's what gets them the high scores, because to get that sound, you got to be going in that water like a knife. It's,
Yeah, that's cool. So, you can always find something to watch, and there's sports on 24/7. So
yep,
it is a fun time, and especially, to break, we've got the soccer tournaments, but then to break up the monotony between, the end of that and football season coming, and, add something with baseball. So we'll see. And then we'll have some baseball. Yep. I don't know who's making up the team, but I know the U.S. managed to qualify, I believe. So,
yep. I do have a quick free pick here. It's the MLB betting angle of the day, which is not to be confused with the NBA angle of the day, but it's the MLB one. So we have Jose Arenas, my man tonight, And it sounds crazy that he's going to have a decent start, or at least a decent enough start that give his team a chance to win. But I do think, in my humble opinion, this has upset written all over it, and this is a supporting system. I'm not making this bet because of this system. I'm making this bet because of the situation that it supports. So we're going to bet on underdogs, Tony Finn, that up to and including 175. Our dog is revenging an embarrassing road loss of 8 or more runs. Our dog is coming off a loss of 6 or more runs to a divisional foe. So in this particular matchup, or this particular system, I should say, number 2 and number 3 could be referencing the same game. But it also could be that it's not. So I just want to make that point. In this case, it is referencing the previous game. This has gone 42 and 41 for just 50% winning bets. So why in the world would you ever bet on this? Well, the reason is that you're averaging a 140 underdog wager, and a $100 bettor has made a 25% ROI and a $2,050 profit over just these 5 years. So it goes one step further. And if our dog is lined between 135 and 175, they have gone on 29-19, good for 60.4% winning bets. The $100 bettor averaging a 155 wager, making $27.50 over the last 5 seasons, 53% ROI. Bet on the Detroit Tigers using the money line. And guys, I actually call these blackjack systems, drawing on the casino game. So blackjack, let's rule out the 21s that pay 3-2. But it's a 50-50 proposition for most purposes, right? So we went 42 and 41. So if we would have played 83 hands at the casino, and we would have walked out and played $100 a hand, we would have walked away with a $100 profit. This system has gone 42 and 41, but because you're getting paid 140 for every winning hand, you walk out of the casino with $2,050 in profits. So I ask you, which one would you rather do? Obviously, you'd rather just play this system and take advantage of when the market is kind of mispriced. And I do think this game has the upset written on it. And I know the whole world will think I'm nuts, but I'm going with Detroit tonight, and that's that.
I think it's just that you wanted to fade my cousin John Carlos Mejia, so that's.
Oh, I saw that.
That's really the issue here. I mean, look, Urena has been terrible. he's given up 18 runs, 18 earned runs over his last 3 starts, encompassing 9 2/3 innings. So I guess strike while the iron's cold.
Well, if you look at the StatCast metrics, I am somewhat encouraged with his recent performance, even though the ERA doesn't reflect that and earned runs allowed doesn't reflect that. When he throws that fastball fundamentally, correctly, soundly, he throws it relaxed and he's not in a pressure cooker. That ball drops and sinks hard on right-handed batters, generates a lot of ground balls when he's pitching correctly or when he's pitching with confidence. And I think if you see that in the first time around the lineup that he's getting more ground balls than fly balls, then honestly, you have to hope that he gets through the second time through the lineup in the same fashion. And then maybe at that point, the bullpen comes in, with whatever the score is. But I'm going out on a limb here. I could look like a complete jackass tomorrow morning, saying that this guy's actually going to complete 5 innings or more, but I think he's going to.
Over his last 7 starts, he's given up 30 earned runs in 29 innings. He's got a whip of 2 and a 11 to 14 K to walk ratio. So he's not faring well. How you doing, Tony Finn?
It's a good day. I woke up. You guys?
Good.
I knew I shouldn't have put the mushrooms on the roast beef sandwich I made today that Tony gave me. And I think that's why I'm losing my mind with Detroit.
Well,
I know Tony thinks I'm out of my mind.
No, I mean, guess what? What's the latest, or at least the most recent money line on this game?
190, I think.
190.
Let's bring it up.
Okay. if you don't
I'll
think,
get
if anyone doesn't think one plus 190s win in Major League Baseball, then they haven't been paying attention. So
Yeah,
I will say this: Anthony is absolutely correct. Here's the deal. Since coming off that injured list, that forearm problem he had, he's averaging just over 3 innings, guys, and 24 runs, 21 earned. Opponents are hitting about 370. They're slugging 650 with a 1.1 and change OPS. Those are atrocious.
It's plus 170, Tone, at
well, then here's the deal. It's not high enough for me to take Urena. I'm kidding, obviously, because it's 170. The bookmakers they haven't been in business since the dawn of time. One of the oldest professions in the world, with the ladies of the night, because they didn't know what they were doing. So plus 170 it is, and most of that, I'll guarantee you that most of the plus 170 is a combination of Cleveland being offensively challenged. You throw away last night, for instance, Manning. Detroit's got issues, guys. I mean, Manning's their top pitching prospect. He did some struggles in AAA. He gave up. He was giving up too many home runs. I think he gave up. 11 in 33 innings at AAA. They brought him up anyway. They, of course, their reasoning. They put on their white hat and said, "We know what we have in Manny. We're bringing him up anyway." When in truth, they need someone to eat some innings. So he's not quite ready for the show, and he showed that last night. Although he had 2 decent starts, guys. He had 2 starts that were more than acceptable. They were manageable for what Detroit's pitching staff has offered. So Urena's another one of those guys. This is not a young guy. This guy's 29 years old. It's not like he's a call up or a prospect that's looking for some innings and some on the job training. So
I remember when the Marlins were very high on him. That's
right.
Yeah,
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. Which, in truth, there's not. I mean, people will tell you there's a big difference, but it's not like Comerica is a horrible place to pitch. So
I'm just looking him up here real quick. I want to see. You guys probably actually know it. I was just looking up who drafted him.
The Marlins,
I thought it was Oakland, but I could be dead wrong.
Maybe I don't know that.
No, it's actually Detroit. No.
Let's put it this way: the first year he was in, the first season in the bigs was with Miami. So, and that was in 15.
Yeah, he debuted in 15.
Yeah,
and his first minor league season.
Go ahead.
I'm just looking up his thing. His first minor league season was 2009 with Florida. So yeah, probably the Marlins.
According to Baseball Reference, is correct pronunciation is Urena. Urena.
Jose Urena.
Okay.
But
that's why rain is in the capital letters.
The Anya is difficult for.
He should be playing hockey. I can't pronounce I can't pronounce all the Slavic names, So
right.
French ones. I mean, I can't tell you. No, I can. I mean, I'm for the most part. I mean, I'm an immigrant from Ukraine. I should be able to pronounce them with no problem. It's those French names I have problems with. Like Roy, the goalie for Montreal. Yeah. Yeah, the first time I was doing some hockey work, been a long time ago, 25. I can't remember what it was, but I called him Roy.
Yeah.
In
your sports book over there, there's no Ukraine and Sweden game on. You have no allegiance there, or you don't care?
None. I don't. You see, that's the years of calloused. The years of calloused that I have acquired from. I don't have a favorite team. My favorite team's the team I have money on, and that changes. From day to day. Sometimes it changes from minute to minute. Depends on what game I'm on or what side I'm on in live betting. It could change fast, but most of my in live is done in the NBA. It's done for the volatility of numbers there, the totals. I can also guarantee you. You can guarantee me that we can log on. Not now with the playoffs, but during the season, you can pretty much log on when you have 6 or 7 games on a slate. And at some point in time, you'll get especially if you're focused on a couple games, you'll get an 8 or 9 point middle. But I can pronounce those NBA names too. It's much easier to do. Much easier to do.
Yeah,
You're
last 2 nights have been filled with opportunities.
Yes, you're right.
Tony, it's pretty easy to pronounce Ben Simmons.
Well, it isn't when he missed. When it's easy to pronounce
it's
but
not Simone's.
No, it's shithole country. Is it something like that? I can't remember what it is.
Who's tricky?
That sounds like a guard.
The Bogdanovich is tricky.
Yeah, bog. It's a bog.
People. I write, so like
right.
Writing that, like it makes it like I can spell that and me like ANTTOAOUMNMPO.
And I've done a lot of writing, but spelling was never a strength of mine. In fact, the software I use when I do write just to make it's a pretty good software. I like the software. It's not. It tells me. It gives me grades and tells me, where my Achilles are, where my pimples are, and it's the same word. I misspelled the same damn word for 25 years. It's like it's just funny. I tell people all the time I'm that guy that has to put his hand on the stove 5 times before you keep telling me it's hot, and I keep telling you it's not really hot. Well, after about 5 times, I finally surrender. Say you're right, it's hot.
What is your opinion, Tony Finn, on Zach Davies' revenge as the Cubs square off against the Brewers tonight?
I was on Milwaukee last night, and when we got to the 7th or 8th inning there, guys, I felt like that's when Milwaukee was at the disadvantage. Now, I'm not saying their bullpen's horrible, but I prefer to have, if it's going to come down to me picking and choosing a bullpen, I would pick the Cubs. When it comes to Davies, I thought his last start was catching the Dodgers, wasn't it? Catching the Dodgers on an off night. Yeah, if I remember.
Right after the Padres series.
It was, yeah. Listen, Davies is that guy. I'm trying to think here. I want to pull up my notes. I have some old notes on Davies too, and I keep all my notes. But Davies is a guy that's always been very difficult for me to trust. Let's put it this way. My last note is actually from May 13th of this year. He went 5 and change. He gave up 1 earned run, 6 hits, 2 base on balls. He had 4 strikeouts, and this was against Cleveland. Okay, at that time, after that start, he had a 5.6 ERA, 1.8 WHIP through his first 8 starts. And to say that would be acceptable, obviously, it's a disappointment. It's an understatement to say it's acceptable. And this is coming off. I don't know about you guys, and Tony, I don't know about you, but there's only a few guys where I've kept 2020 numbers or considered them reliable or evidence of who a guy is, or maybe who he's turned into or who he's worked to be. Davies last year was 275, about 1 flat whip, in the 60 game sprint. However, some of the underlying peripherals would tell you that it wasn't that good, although the service numbers are good. So, but he has absolutely zero, at least at this point in 5/13, May 13th, I say, if he can ever locate his pitches, he could be serviceable. But he just has he has no command whatsoever. So, he's one of those guys, Tony, that as I wrote last time, or I wrote in my MLB, was that it's a special, you're a special character, and I'll give you a pass, I guess, if you want to feel entitled. I think Major League Baseball owners, players, umpires especially, are the worst as far as feeling like they have to be the show, the players of the show. There's a reason why they should. But for some reason, it takes you got to take a Gatorade cooler and knock it over an umpire's head in NFL before he's going to call a penalty on the coach. In baseball, it's just not the case. And in basketball, it's not quite that bad. It's cooler, but they're the NBA officials are fairly good listeners, as you know. They listen to a lot of crap and then go on their way. Not Major League Baseball umpires. The best example would be Country Joe West. You go to his website, he'll show you how to sing a country and western song. He will send you an album for the right amount of money, and then he will show you what the real strike zone is, all on the same website.
I want somebody to tell me, like incognito cam, if Angel Hernandez, once he walks off like he did last night, if he's like, am I trending on Twitter? Does he ask somebody? Does he text? And he's like, hey, you're trending on Twitter, and he checks his messages. And he's like, he nods to himself.
Angel Hernandez is a different animal too, is he not?
Did you see the pitch that Trevor Bauer got from him?
The what?
I wanted to bring this up to you. It was crazy bad.
Well, you mean
the generosity of the outside corner? I mean,
Angel Hernandez is unreliable.
How was it?
Oh, yeah. Angel Hernandez is.
It was probably a foot off the plate.
Well, that's
9 inches.
Angel Hernandez is under the, with the union. He's tenure. He's not even subject to being graded by the K zone like the newbies are. He gets graded. His grades have always been fairly poor, and as far as Major League Baseball goes, Angel Hernandez can fall into the ocean. They wouldn't care, So.
The reason I asked you, Tony, about Davies was I was surprised that coming off the combined no-hitter,
right?
And obviously Woodruff is there, but they're still like behind Houston and Baltimore, the second biggest, and that's Chicago and Milwaukee. It's right now you get at Westgate, you get $2 on the Cubs. Is this going to be like a 8-0 Brewers win? Because I might sign up for that.
Well, I would say this. I don't. One of the reasons I hesitate. There's lots of times I want to, push across the counter on Milwaukee, but I always have that tinge. There's always that. Let me see what the history is between pitcher and active players for projected lineup, et cetera, is Milwaukee's one of those teams that has big holes in their lineups and has hitters that have big holes in their swings. But when they're on, you saw it last night, 10-run, 8. That game's really misleading because that game was 4-4. I mean, they were up, they gave up the lead as soon as Peralta exited, I think. Was that correct? Then they gave up 2 more runs, tied it up 4-4. And the next thing I knew, I looked back and it was 7-4. And I looked back again, it was 10-4. Then I looked a couple minutes later, it's 14. It's that's what Milwaukee can do. I think that's something Milwaukee can do that the Cubs can't do. I just don't. They have some issues there. And in truth, Tony, John, this Cubs team was really, they were selling before the season even started, letting guys go, not re-signing. I mean, you think maybe if they thought they were going to be in this position, I don't think they did, or if they were or still are in this position 2 months from now, I'm quite certain that most of the articles from the Tribune or the Sun Times, whatever the case may be, whatever paper you read, maybe the Columbia, which my daughter was a editor-in-chief for, the Columbia college newspaper there in Chicago. They're going to say, why did we let Darvish go? So.
Well, I mean, the Brewers have. I'm stunned. They're 13 games of 500, given their hitting issues all season, and they finally got Keston Hiura hitting the ball. He's got homers in his last 3 games, and that guy, when he's right, I mean, he hits the ball as hard as anybody. And like I'm looking at their lineup today, I don't hate Tyrone Taylor. Nope. They got Urias leading off, Yelich decent batting third, Garcia behind them. So I think I'm going to take a shot on this run line.
I wouldn't blame you for doing that. In fact, if I would feel much better about this team if Yelich could stay healthy and return to being 75% of what he was the last couple of years. I mean, maybe somebody will say he is. He was not only statistically was he good, with this team when he came up and joined them, or came over upstate and joined them. He was in the middle of the action every night. His hits were big hits, and he's just not been healthy really for the last over the last 365 days. At some point in time, he's been injured, playing hurt, whatever the case may be. So he's the guy.
I wanted to ask you guys about the trade today. Maybe you didn't have time to really look at it, but it looks like the key player here is Adam Cimber, who goes by I guess his friends call him Sim Dog Millionaire. He's right-handed, went to Toronto. It's going to reinforce the bullpen, I suppose. And they gave up a lefty who they designated for assignment in Bergen.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what you guys thought of this. This is just a trade that's not worth talking about, or is this a kind of a key addition for Toronto's bullpen? Because I really don't know.
Well, I mean, Adam Cimber is Corey Dickerson is involved in that trade too. Not that he's injured though. Okay. Miami got who they get? Panic, right? They got Panic.
Yep, they got Panic and minor league right-hander Andrew McInvale.
Yeah, right. I would say this trade is a much ado about. I want to say much ado about nothing, but it's not, because we talked about on First Pitch yesterday. I think, Tony, were you on? No, you weren't on. It was me and Brian, but it was everyone talked about, or they wanted to talk about trade deadline and the teams that need some back end help on the bullpen or a closer help, et cetera, et cetera. And I just personally don't think teams are gonna have to be pretty creative and probably gonna have to settle for less than and pay and overpay. But there's not a lot of top bullpen arms going to be available at the trade deadline.
He's 30 years old, 2.88 ERA. He appeared in 33 games so far this year, 34 in the third innings.
Yeah,
140 batters faced, ERA plus of 140.
Yeah,
a FIP of 332. I mean, it looks like a pretty good acquisition.
Well, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the Jays, I think their bullpen started off lights out, and then of late it has been terrible. So maybe they felt like they had to do something. I was going to ask you, Tony, if you think the Cubs become sellers, is Tepera a guy that becomes available and becomes an asset?
I think so. I still am a believer. We're still let's hang on to reality and know that it is just the end of June. So funny things happen in Major League Baseball in July and August. Teams become buyers and at the end of July, and it works out so they're in it end of August. And there's some teams that in this month of July melt in the summer heat. And what we thought you and I and John may think would be buyers and would be contenders, all of a sudden, especially if they're on if they're on the fence. Where they're not even sure. They're not sure whether they're qualifying maybe for a possible wild card slot, and so that's really the conundrum there. That's the difficult spot to be in as a general manager and as a franchise. What do you do? I think we all know that this Cubs team they've been tossing guys, selling guys, letting guys go, not signing free agents they probably should have, for reasons that only we would probably call, or the media there in Chicago would call a rebuild, right?
Yep. Rob Veno.
I mean, look. Hold it. Before, what have you seen? Are they not testing the Nationals hitters?
For what, like on the spot HGH?
Well, anything. I don't know what kind of whatever the Cubs, whatever the Nationals are giving the ex-Cubs players, then I want some of that.
I watch a lot of Deezes and Mira on Showtime. You got to use the word allegedly and go.
Yes,
and then you can say whatever you want.
That's only if you're politically correct, which I am not. So.
Yeah,
That
Schwarber's
line
put
was
on the
used
show.
in Trouble with the Curve too.
What's that? Oh yeah.
The movie Trouble with the Curve, that line was used.
Let me tell you,
Yeah,
I
that movie.
like that movie. I don't care what anybody else says. I liked that movie because I like Clint Eastwood and I like Amy Adams.
I like him. Yeah.
Rob said to me today, he was trying to get on a show and he was standing in the middle of the room yelling and nobody could hear him.
When?
I wonder if that changed for Mr. Veno now.
Where was he at?
He's right to your right.
Oh, he was.
You're
He was
right.
at He was at DMV. They're not going to listen to you. I got 700. I went there. 700 people in the DMV the other day. What? And it's only by appointment only. Well,
There's that
they
many people
definitely-
in Vegas with a driver's license?
without one. I don't have one. Mine expired, and they made all these promises that they couldn't keep. They can't keep them. But I'm just wondering, I may never have a driver's license again because I went through the whole process. Was there 3 hours? Remember, I had to go, and I didn't do the show that day because I had.
Every time you leave your house, you're 1,000 yards, and you get told to go back
Right.
home.
I
why
get
you
pulled
have a
over.
car?
1 mile, further than 1 mile from my house, they say, "Listen, what are you up to? You got to go home." Yeah, I may never have one because they said, "Well, you have to. We need to know your old driver's license number from California, or we can't, or you have to take the written test and the driving test." I said, "What?"
Well, your spelling already sucks, so you'd probably fail that.
Well, exactly. No, I couldn't. I didn't have my contacts on. I'm quite certain I would have failed the test. Or I would have told I only have one in, one out. What do you mean I got to come back? I got to come back. I convinced the lady this. She promised me. I told her, I said, don't promise me unless you're going to do it because I promise you, if you don't do it, this is what I'm going to do. But she said, I tell you what, you get that information, you come back, stand in front of me when somebody's sitting down, and just wave your hand, and I will then sit down close and I'll pull you in and we'll get this done for you, right? Well, I'm quite certain I'm going to go back, and she's going to say, well, I didn't break my promise. I just don't remember you, don't want you at my desk, and I don't trust you. That's what I know she's going to say that. I know it. So here we go, all over again. 3 months. 3 months. Right now it takes 3 months to get into the DMV. Yeah. I've had, you know how many tickets
Rob,
I have?
how you doing?
You know how many tickets I have
How's your
right
mic?
now for no driver's license? It's ridiculous.
Let's move on to the NBA. And we can, if you want to use this game tonight as your show-free pick, please do. If not, we'll fill in after the review. But I have side and total on this game like I did last night. So I'm going to take the 5th to protect the integrity of the people who bought the pick. I'm terrible at keeping secrets. I'm really bad at it. Really bad. You should see me at Christmas time. What'd you get me? You want to know? And most of the time I tell her. But, I guess my strengths lie elsewhere. But in this matchup in game 4, we have a big issue with Trae Young's. He has a bruised toe, and that was defined by an MRI that was run on Monday, being yesterday. The way the Bucks won the previous game, it's hard for me to not think that the public is going to start jumping now on the Bucks. But this has been a seesaw sentiment series for sure, where the public has jumped ship almost game to game. And now we're in game 4, and road favorite. I can tell you angles on both sides of the game. But I'm most interested in what you guys have to say. So let's start with Tony Mejia. And, he's become our prop man, too. So maybe he has some prop bets for us.
Yeah, I'll give out a prop bet for at the end of the show for best bets. And I have a 5% here, so I won't take the 5th, but I'll just talk about the game. It's a foot thing. So it's not his toe. Toes are sometimes worse, but it's actually a foot thing that's supposed to be a bunch of soreness, and Ukraine just won on like a late goal.
Tony, you're not a foot man, are you? Just before we go into this,
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Do nothing for me. the fact is that he's going to have problems, getting mobile.
Yeah.
So does he then become a spot-up shooter, which not necessarily his strength, but do you use him as a decoy? I believe he's going to be out there. So from that standpoint, I think we'll see him, and I don't think we'll see much of a line jump. I know it jumped from 6 to 6.5 to 7 at some spots, and then the total came down, given that 221 to 218, I believe. Given the fact that people perceive that he won't be himself. So my horror story with this series has been game 3 I was on the over as my 5%, and it looked like it was headed there, and then he steps on Sean Wright's foot late third quarter because we're on pace. We needed 57 points to get there to start the fourth. And that's basically basic math from where we were at. I figured we'd need 56. So I'm like, we get some game extension, we're good. And it'll be an interesting opportunity to see what Milwaukee brings to the table in terms of killer instinct, which hasn't been that team's strength or Mike Budenholzer's strength. But if Giannis plays like Giannis does and doesn't settle for threes, it should be a game that they should be able to handle. I don't know if they'll cover, but they should come home out of Atlanta with a 3-1 lead. We'll see if that happens. But from that standpoint, it's going to be one of those games where you might want to wait to bet in game if you see that Young's got very little. Again, my prop involves Kevin Huerter, and I'll save it for best bets. But I think there's a solid angle on it and a good line.
Well, I did look it up, Tony. You're right. It's a bone bruise as opposed to a toe bruise, which is a big difference. Because if it's your big toe and you're trying to run, if you've ever had a bruised toe, it's pretty hard. It's like turf toe in the NFL. But the injury, as you described it, he actually stepped on somebody as opposed to being stepped on, right?
Right, and it twisted. Yeah, from what I read, there may be ligament damage, but it's something that he probably will be able to play through. That's why I expect to see him.
Yeah. In your experience with being a national beat writer for CBS, is it possible this is something that can be numbed up, like a small injection in that area specifically?
I'm not sure, because even with that insider thing, there's nobody that's going to tell me, oh yeah, we shot him up. That's just not something that's done. But it could happen. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess we're going to see. I don't expect to see Trae Young at 100% with his floater game. From a mobility standpoint, I know the injury just happened the other night, and that's why they were outscored 30-17 in the fourth. Not in addition to Chris Middleton going off, but he was clearly limited. Like anybody that watched that game knows, not to expect 100% from Trae Young tonight.
Tony Finn, what do you think?
I think Tony's spot on. He's spot on with. We'll see. I think we're going to see Trae Young tonight. I don't think we're going to see a good Trae Young. Now, you have to take all this with a grain of salt, and I will follow the advice that Tony gave me earlier and say allegedly. Now, allegedly, from a guy I talked to who's in Chicago. So he's not in Atlanta, he's not in Milwaukee, but he's close to Milwaukee. Okay, close. So we'll just call this a horseshoe and hand grenade projection, and that is he said to me he got information that the injury was worse than just a bone bruise, and I questioned that. I asked him, I saw the replay. It looked like he stepped on the official's foot. He got pissed. He looked over to the official and got up and went on his way. Right. They're saying it's damage to the. He's saying they're saying the information you got was damage to the outer layer of the bone. Isn't that just a bone bruise, right? I think it is. I don't. I'm not a doctor, but he was saying that this type of an injury, this type of a year, for a player that's typically has some. None of them are 100%, so much like football where they're all about 20% in the playoffs, and that there's a 3-4 week recovery time on that.
Wow.
Yeah, right? So that, and again, allegedly, this is something I know. This is a guy I know. He's a reliable guy. He's an NBA guy. He's actually, he's not just an NBA like Tony was. Okay, I'm assuming you were just NBA Tony. He covers the big three. Okay, in North America, baseball, football, basketball, and he just said, he said this. He said. Then he asked me. He said, can I help you with anything else? Or anything else, Tony? And I said, I said no. He said, well, you asked me. He asked me. He goes, could Atlanta win this game without Trae Young? And I said, listen, I'm on the next plane to Chicago right now because I want some of the crap that you're doing right now that you would even ask me that question. I'll meet you at such and such bar, and then we'll go over to the aquarium. We'll go to the aquarium and enjoy the fish. Because I don't think they can win without Trae Young. I don't know about you guys.
Well, you lost me with the aquarium part and how that ties in.
Well, it's in Chicago, the aquarium. You've never been to the aquarium in Chicago?
I don't think so, actually.
Have you never been
I go to
stoned?
baseball stadiums in Chicago.
No, yeah. Well, Wrigley? No, yeah. I stay, listen, I'm from the ghetto. I stay on the south side.
The ghetto, as you call it, has some of the
my
best
daughter lives in the
jazz
ghetto there. She
bars
lives
in the world.
where's the Hyde Park? So, she's in Hyde Park. Why is she in Hyde Park? Because she likes it. She likes it.
Rob Veno was in the south side of Chicago, and I'm sure
were you
he
on the
went
south
to-
side, Veno?
And he heard some of the jazz bars.
Did you do Giordano's or Lou Malnati's?
See, Tony knows Chicago.
I've been to Chicago, but not, I think twice. So not
You ever been to the aquarium?
No.
Oh,
I had no time for the
that's too bad.
aquarium. I was there for Bulls games.
You were what?
I was there for Bulls games.
Oh, I thought you said you. Never mind, because what I thought you said. I thought you said I was there for bullshit. It depends on what year you were there for the Bulls games. It could be the same thing.
Right in.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Bulls, Scottie Pippen had some nice comments. And moving on, Rob Veno, is your mic working?
Can you hear me?
No, you're really soft again.
Really soft,
Rob.
but let me, I think I
Well.
can adjust it on my end here so we could hear you. And let's see what I can do. All right, now say something.
By the way, Tony Finn, congratulations on Ukraine advancing to the
Well, thank you.
the quarterfinals.
I have a question. I have a
play
question for
England
everyone,
in Rome.
except you, Tony. You can't answer this question. Who's the best athlete on the Ukraine soccer team?
I have no clue.
I don't either. I don't know either. But
This is
I
an
know, I'm
easy
sure.
one.
I'm sure. See, Tony knows it. You do soccer.
Yarmolenko's world class. He's the only guy on their team that they have world class. He actually plays in England. So
Who's he?
and he's had a great tournament.
Who does he play for in England?
Believe me, one of the Man City, I want to say.
Okay.
Make sure.
Well, that's a. He's a Boston Red Sox fan.
He won
right?
the Champions League, right?
No, Chelsea won the Champions League.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Is
But
it?
There was two
does
England
Fenway?
teams in it for
Isn't Man City a Fenway Park team? Aren't they owned by the Red Sox? The owner of the Red Sox, Man City. Am I wrong about that?
That's Manchester United, I think.
Oh, it's United. Really? United's owned by the Red Sox?
I could be wrong.
I thought United was. I thought there was like rules. They had to be ancestral at Man City. That's got to stay in England, man.
I think LeBron's got a piece of Fulham. And let me correct
Really?
myself before somebody in the chat room gets at me. Yarmolenko plays at West Ham, which is in London.
West Ham. Well, they're a household name, West Ham, compared to Man City and Man United.
That's true. But he's a Premier League player from the Ukraine, so he's legit.
Listen, if you're playing in the Premier League and you haven't been, you haven't been knocked out of the Premier and have to play at the what is that? What's the league below that?
The Championship?
No, there's a Premier, and then if you're If you finish last in the Premier League,
Yeah,
you're going to
it's
be.
called the championship.
Is it Championship League? Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's called,
All right.
the English Championship.
I apologize. I just don't have time to follow soccer. Tony.
It's huge.
Well,
many
of course
teams
it's
there are.
huge. It's huge. It's the biggest. It makes NFL as far as a handle across the counter on a daily basis. It makes the NFL look like third world soccer. Am I right?
What's that?
I mean, soccer, the handle.
The handle.
The global handle of soccer, it makes the NFL look like a peewee.
Yeah. No, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Well, what is the biggest monetary value for a franchise in all of sports?
Soccer.
Manchester United.
Is it Manchester? I thought it was Barcelona, but then I could.
I'm almost 100% sure it's
Maybe so.
Manchester United by leaps and bounds. But we can look it up and then
Spain doesn't have. I would say that's probably accurate. I mean, I'm going to guess the UK is a little more stable, and I'm sure I'm going to insult somebody that the UK is a little more stable than Spain. Although they're all still under the euro, unless I'm way behind. Did England ever
Barely.
leave that? Barely, yeah, right.
barely.
Barely.
Them in
but-
Greece.
Well, I
Barely.
don't
Well,
see
Greece.
Man-
Listen, you
I
can't
don't
trust
see
the
Man
Greeks.
U on this list from Forbes. I see the Dallas Cowboys, $5.7 billion. The Yankees at $5.25 billion. The Knicks at $5 billion, and then Barcelona at $4.76 billion.
That's close.
And what year is that Forbes? Is that the current one? Just out of
I
curiosity?
believe so.
Here's as we all
Yeah.
know. Let's say it again. What's the highest? What's the value you're showing? Forbes is showing for the highest baseball team. What is it?
The Yankees, second overall in the world.
Now I'll say this, that we don't really know. They're not publicly traded, so they're not. Of course, under law, they're not even required. We make estimates on their revenues and such through their vendors and contracts, because MLB owners are, you can't even arrest them. They can. They have diplomatic immunity, whatever the hell it is, but they can murder someone and get away with it.
So extradition doesn't apply to any of those 32
Well,
countries?
if I listen, that's what I have to. That's my next job, is to be an MLB owner, because then I'm safe from any prosecution.
Oh, just say you're an MLB owner the next time you
Well,
get
I
pulled over
tell
the
them
1,000
I'm
yards from your
Pablo
house.
Escobar, and they still arrest me.
God.
No
All right,
one
it's
would
Rob
ever.
Veno's turn to talk.
Okay, well, we can't hear him, so go ahead, Rob.
He's a softly spoken man.
You can't hear me, right?
No, we
I
got
can
him
hear
now.
you I can hear you a little bit.
I read
Oh,
lips,
all
though.
right.
Don't worry about it. Go on.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, because I just went through a sound check with Chris on one of those VMix things, and he said the volume was okay. So I don't know what the problem is here, but I'll try and talk really loud so the rest of the house can hear me too. First off, real quick, to Tony Mejia, Lou Malnati's was the first place we went to in Chicago. So that was a hit. No time in the South Side. Tornadoes while I was there. No sense going over there.
Of course. So get over.
Wiped out. The Sox game was even suspended Friday night with Rodon on the hill in like the third inning. They had to shut that down for tornadoes. Billy Goats. Anybody ever been to Billy Goats? It's that Saturday Night Live cheeseburger skit they used to do. That's
I
where
like
they
that.
did it from. Pretty famous place, a little hole in the wall, like a lot of things in Chicago. And, well, I told you yesterday that the kids for the NBA draft combine were at the hotel, so we got to see a lot of those guys.
Oh, that's cool.
I've never been to that cheeseburger joint, no.
No,
I
it's
haven't
called
been.
Billy Goats. The guy who put the curse on the Cubs in 1945 apparently opened this joint.
I have been to Cheeseburger in Paradise, though. I did go to that. I've been to that cafe.
You're a Jimmy Buffett guy.
Jimmy Buffett wrote a song. It's the southernmost, right next to the southernmost hotel, which is, believe it or not, it's the southernmost hotel in the United States, Key West. I've only been there once, though, one time.
Yeah. No
Once
extra
in college,
there.
and I'm not proud of it.
You're in Key West, you say. Real quick with Trey Young, guys. I mean, this is why it's so tough to handicap, right? Because I listen to Tony and what he knows, and I listen to Tony Finn and what he knows, and then I spent the day trying to, listen to a couple of athletes who have had the injury, and they say that you do get shot up for this, and that Trey Young will not feel the ankle during the game. So while some mobility, obviously, he's not going to be 100%. But Trey Young should be able to function out there on the floor here tonight for the Atlanta Hawks. I think that's probably some of the reason why, where his props are concerned, we haven't seen a ton of downward movement. I think I saw 39.5 for rebounds, points, and assists. So we'll see if Trey Young can go. He's going to give it his best, and it'll just make the rest of the guys, a little bit better having him on the floor. But we'll see. Apparently, though, it is one of those things where you just take a shot. Heard from shows today with a couple of guys who have had this specific injury, and said that's what they do. And it's
Can you walk? Can you run?
Up so good that he won't even know that he's injured while he's out there.
When my legs asleep, guys, how do how you walk and you run when your legs are asleep?
Yeah, with the bottom of your foot, you can't feel it.
But I'm not very good on two healthy legs. But
he went through shoot around.
Yeah,
I guess if
good.
anybody else read that.
I mean, we want him to be well. We want him to be healthy, unless you guys have a big number, opposite him right now. And then, of course, I'm with you. I don't have any vested interest in this game yet. But after talking to my buddy in Chicago, I'm sure tempted. But while I will chase injuries in the NBA in the playoffs. Chasing injuries this year was a way to go bankrupt. As soon as the player was injured, it was bad.
Mm-hmm. No question. It hit as high as 7. I see a lot of 6.5s now out there, so
yeah.
Leads you to believe he's on the floor here tonight. I'd imagine he will be. How effective? Who knows? But if he's there and he can shoot, he's effective enough.
Does anybody know what, because I know for a fact from my running days, if it's his big toe, that's critical. That's a totally different ballgame. If the bone bruise is on that big toe, lateral movement's going to be really hard.
I didn't ask, but he didn't. The way he described it, it was more like a instep kind of, or a bone, like the bone from. It wasn't a toe bone, but maybe I'm wrong. So
I would say if it's in the arch, and like Tony Mejia said, there's possibility of ligament damage, and that ligament damage, maybe they did another MRI, and there is none, or it's
it
minimal.
sure didn't look that bad, in the replay. But then,
let's.
I'll be honest with you.
I didn't think Nalen broke his ankle either. So.
Joel Embiid had ligament damage for 7 games, and he was scoring 30 a night and getting double-digit rebounds. So,
and that was a knee.
Upon how severe it is, he could probably
until he built up such a tolerance for the morphine that they had to go to something else.
What was the score of the game when that injury occurred?
Well, the Hawks
it was in the end of the third quarter, wasn't it, Tony? Or beginning of the fourth?
It was something like 79, 78, some close like that. Not exactly that, but it was very tight.
They sure were bad in the fourth quarter, weren't they? Atlanta.
30-17.
Pretty bad.
If they would have shot that bad against Philly, Simmons would have been at least 75% from the free throw line.
Oh, no.
Sir, yeah. Hey, I did hear, you guys probably heard it too. It's coming out of Philly, so it's probably not true. But there's talk that the Sixers are entertaining trade ideas of Simmons going to Minnesota.
Who wants Simmons?
Well, apparently, it's going to be interesting. I wrote a column for Gaming Today on the odds, and Minnesota was not even on listed, but they have come out, or the rumor mill has come out and said that they really want him. How could they get him? D'Angelo Russell, I would assume.
That's it. That's the only thing that fits the contracts.
Yeah, because they're not trading Towns and they're not giving you Anthony Edwards. So,
no.
It would have to be that. The betting favorite was Portland, and in a package involving CJ and probably the kid they got from Toronto, and some other salaries to make it work. And then the other believable scenario that I wrote about of the teams that were listed, because I didn't buy most of them, the Lakers were on the list and all that. They don't have the assets to get them. Was the Oklahoma City Thunder, and it would be interesting because they acquired Kemba Walker to trade him. It would be interesting to see what Sam Presti can cook up if he wants Ben Simmons. If he wants no part of Ben Simmons, there's nothing to talk about. But if he wants to buy low, he's got the assets to pull something off.
Who wants to, guys? A quick question. If you believe me, or you have even if you just believe it a little bit, and that we live in the age of video NBA, where it's almost impossible to defend a good offense that runs a spread, basically space and pace. If you get out of them 30 feet, athletes, even centers, they're athletic enough and they have the mobility to go around players. So this is it's again, we talked about it on the show. I don't know if you were on it, Tony, but we talked about it, and that's Sean Marks. When Sean Marks, it's not like he didn't have enough offense. He went after Harden because he believes that that's what the NBA is now. Is that, listen, it's about scoring. Defense, if you're going to win championships, you have to be capable defensively, much like in the NFL. You got to be just capable. But if you can't score in the NFL, if you don't have an offense that can score in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that doesn't have to run the football, that can basically do kind of a hybrid of the West Coast, whatever you want to call what Andy Reid and all the rest of them are doing, then you can't compete. You're not going to compete. Tell me that. I think that's the issue with the Lakers here, not guys, and we can argue about this. But the Lakers, as they aren't going to win with a 39-year-old point guard that's 6'10", and probably 20 pounds overweight, and lost 2 seconds off his 40, and he can't shoot a three. And they want to hang their hat on defense. I don't think you win championships with that. But I digress to the people who are smarter than me. You three.
We're the only three.
You're only three listening to me right now. I'm not sure you are.
I will say that LeBron James was in the running for MVP before he got hurt. I'll say that, and I'll say that they did have an elite defense when he was healthy. But who knows? The West ended up being so wide open because of that. Because nobody else knew how to win, Well, that's still the case right now. You got the Phoenix Suns can't close out a game last night because they get punched in the mouth and didn't respond.
That game was concerning. That's a concerning game for me, guys. Although I think Phoenix is a better team. What they were able to, the times they had that game within reach to go out and grab it and do a couple things, and really, I thought if they took the lead, that they would not have relinquished it. The game was concerning, and what Phoenix can do moving forward. I'm just saying.
As in, like, your belief in the Suns?
My belief in what you just outlined was basically having that experience, that playoff experience, and knowing, knowing others, knowing how to. Here we go. Knowing how to be able to space, pace, and also know how to at least put the odds in your favor defensively and do the right things, knowing how to win. That while Chris Paul has a history of being, people think he's choked in the playoffs. So I think that's unfair, but I think he's shown that this year. But guys like Booker, Ayton, that's a pretty young group, and with zero playoff experience except for 2021. So that game was concerning on that aspect, Tony, you just mentioned. It's wide open because guess what? Really, there's nobody out there right now that certainly other than Kawhi. The Clippers don't have a ton of champions other than Cousins, right? Well,
One last question for you guys, and we'll do round the horn with our last thoughts and quick best bets. Lillard was rumored to now be going possibly to the Knicks. So it all of a sudden hit me with Tony Mejia's statement that Portland might be interested in Simmons. Does that make it more of an unrumor? What's the opposite of a rumor other than fact?
A lie?
Yeah. Clickbait. Clickbait. I don't buy for a second that even though Damian Lillard, you know what? The short story with Damian Lillard is there was backlash over Chauncey Billups' hire, like on fan websites and within the fan base because of those rape allegations from a long time ago. And the fact that Becky Hammon was considered a real serious candidate, there was a lot of people that threw their arms up in the air and said, "Oh, what's it going to take? We're just going to retread." And now we got this guy who had rape allegations, and he basically paid them to go away, type of deal. And Damian Lillard clamored for it. And Damian Lillard kind of distanced himself from it, said, "I wasn't aware of the allegations, but I also don't like the criticism." Because Damian Lillard technically went and he said, "I want a Jason Kidd who also has women beating allegations in his past," and that's not allegedly, that's proven. So I think he bristled at it, but at the same time, I expect to see Damian Lillard in a Blazers uniform next season, and I don't expect to see CJ McCollum in one.
I agree with that. I mean, I think it's Lillard. I think Lillard's in Portland, or he's not playing. I agree with you, Tony. I mean, I think he had conversations with the front office because I think they considered at the deadline there was some consideration in moving Lillard, getting the maximum they could from him then. And I think Lillard said, "Listen, I want to retire here." And I think that at some level, they basically said we can't take a black. We can't have Lillard saying, I asked to stay, they didn't do it, and not that the NBA is that concerned with having a black eye, but yeah, I think you know what I mean, and I think Tony's correct. It's not Lillard that goes. I say this. I don't know anybody who wants Simmons either, though. I don't know anybody if he fits with. I don't think he fits in this day and age of the NBA. I just don't think he fits very well.
Just real quick, Lillard's under contract through 2024. If you're a small market like Portland, you don't give up a talent like Damian Lillard if he's under contract through 2024.
I think he has. He can refuse a trade too. I think, is that right, Tony?
I don't know. Oh, does he know? Don't
Possibly. But he's also got a player option for 2025 that pays over $50 million. So you could trade that whole contract. But again, unless he's that disgruntled, and I don't think he will because he really likes Chauncey. I think this will blow over, and they'll move CJ McCollum, and then the news cycle will move on to the next thing. And Chauncey Billups is a really likable guy. So, whether that's accurate in his past or not, nobody knows.
Especially for a pretty girl.
Yeah, I think they'll ultimately like Chauncey Billups as head coach.
Chauncey Billups. Good player. Underrated player.
And hopefully he does a better job than his brother did at the University of Denver.
Hey, listen, those guys are all still friends with Kobe.
Right.
right. So
yeah, I mean it's.
I'll start us off with the final round free picks here, and I have two of them. My write-up and comprehensive research report is on sportsmemo.com at my profile page, sm.buzz/jr, and it's the Dodgers in San Francisco, and I'm on the Dodgers, and I'm not trying to be anal here, but go read it, and I think you'll find it quite interesting. It's on the Dodgers and has a lot to do with Walker Buehler. It also has to do with the fact that the Dodgers have 6 guys in that lineup that average a 90 or greater exit velocity speed. And I'll also add that Gausman is the opposing starter. Very low walk percentage, 5.5%, one of the best in the majors. And I'll admit, both these pitchers are two of the best in the league. But against this Dodgers lineup, who has been hitting 195 over their last 7 games, this is one of those not regress, but progress from this crappy hitting, mainly because they know that Gausman is going to be in the strike zone on that first pitch. He has a very high first pitch strike rate. It's usually fastball. So I think you're going to see the Dodgers do one of two things in the first at bat. Either look to work the account and force him to throw middle in, or they're going to attack that first pitch like it's their favorite steak dinner. And I do think that coming off this 7-game stretch of crappy hitting sets the stage for the unthinkable. I mean, nobody would think that 5 or 6 runs could be scored on Gausman. I'm not saying that'll happen, but I think they'll have the lead, and Bueller will pitch more innings than Gausman, according to my predictive models, and that puts the Dodgers in a 90% chance of winning the game at home. That's it. But there's more to read, so get over there and do that. Rob Veno.
Yes,
We'll let Tony Mejia go last tonight. He can be the anchor reporter.
Don't drop the baton.
You're handing it off.
He can't drop it. He's the anchor, dummy.
Well,
he can't drop it. He doesn't have anybody to hand it off to.
No, but he can.
He can drop it
and cleanly from him.
But that would be on Tony Finn then for
That's
an
true.
improper
Of
transfer.
course it would be. Everything is on. I'm accountable for most
and
everybody.
you're not an owner.
Else. Yeah.
All right,
Not
Rob,
an
what do you
owner,
have
right.
for us?
Yeah, because if I hand it off to you, Tony, and it gets dropped, it's not my fault.
Well, I'm certain it's not.
So all the way around this box, it all comes back to you. All the way around. Yeah, I've got to play on this NBA game tonight. So again, like you, John, I won't use it here on the show, but I will go to the prop board, and I happen to think that Kevin Huerter is in a good spot to be bet over his total of 12.5 points tonight. He actually is second on the team right now, tied with John Collins in shot attempts, 33 shot attempts through 3 games. So he certainly gets the volume up there. He certainly gets his share of threes. If you get a couple of those, you're halfway home. I had 13 last game. I just feel like he's that guy. If Trae Young is not able to produce what he normally produces, it's got to come from somewhere else. And I feel like Herter's the guy who gets the shots, who's actually shown up in a few games. Probably more than, Gallinari showed up last game as support, but when you think about what John Collins and Bogdanovich have done, the two guys who should be the main co-stars after Trae Young, they really haven't been very consistent at all. And I'd say that even through the Philadelphia series, Kevin Huerter was as good as any of those guys. So give me him at 12.5 points. I'll go up and over. It's a very small vig. I think 15 cents. I'll lay it. I'll play Kevin Huerter over 12.5 points.
Love it. Mr. Finn.
Yes, sir.
It's your turn, buddy.
It's my turn. Let's
No
go
clock
to
either.
No clock. Wow. Hold on a second. Let me. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette then. I'm gonna go to Philadelphia Phillies in the Miami Marlins, and I'm gonna make this. If anyone looked at this line and found the Phillies at home being an underdog yesterday, I think that's pretty much a pick 'em now. It wasn't that it was that far off, but I found that a little bit peculiar. I know Vince is a much like a couple other pitchers in the league that are like him, with the same MO and same style of pitching. He's not what he was a couple 3 years ago, and really, in truth, command being his pimple. Really, it's the command and the fact that he catches a little bit too much of the strike zone. But Miami, and against teams that are capable offensively and have some meat in the middle of the lineup, he's an issue. He's a liability. Miami's not that team. I think you have to look at Velasquez in specific matchups that are favorable for him. He's going to win a few games between now and the end of the season. Where Philly ends up may, in fact, have a lot to do with how well he commands his fastball going forward. The real story here, and the real story is that it's Rodgers is the story. This is a guy who really was, he was the talk of young pitchers at the beginning of the season, April and May, and in some circles he still is. But his last start wasn't very good. And most people that I've read, or at least most of the writers I know, the beat writers that cover the Marlins, they said, listen, look at his numbers or his splits when he has more than regular rest. They're absolutely right. If he has more than 5 days rest, 6 days rest, he's closer to a 4 ERA than he is a 1.8, which is what his ERA is on 4 days rest. However, the real story with him, the reason he had a week off is I'm positive, guys, allegedly positive, that he went to the prime pitcher and says, listen, guys, I use tack. I use this tack, and now I've got an issue because I'm not going to be able to command. I'm going to have problems commanding. I'm going to have problems with my spin. And so I went and looked at his spin when I received this information from my buddy, or at least allegedly it's not the layoff he had, and that's last start he had where he had a week off. It is his spin. So I want to pull up my notes for you guys and see if you read this stuff. But 4 days, 1.57 ERA, by the way, in 8 starts on 5 days, 1.75 ERA in 4 starts on 6+ days, a 3.60 ERA in 2 starts, 6 days or more. Okay, average spin rate was down in all 3 of his pitches in the 3-pitch guy. Fastball -59, slider -238.
Oh, that's pretty
Changeup -289. I'm saying this is a guy that had a really good April, a really good May, and he's like everybody else. He's using whatever's makes it comfortable for him to get that spin and command his pitches. And now he doesn't have that. And without that, let's put it this way: his fastball velocity 94.6 fell to a season average with 92. Without that spin, without that velo on his fastball, I think Trevor Rogers is an average pitcher, and I think Philly is always a play at home if they're going to be in the game, despite their bullpen. If they're at home, they're one of the best teams in baseball. I'll take the Phillies at a small dog price.
And did you know
I don't.
that the Phillies have blown 21 saves, opportunities, and their
Right.
franchise record for a season is 25?
Well, let's just have an 8-run lead then, and I'll make it easy.
All right. I won't bet the game, and that'll happen then.
Okay. I'd like to win it.
I hope you do. I would love to see the Phillies play a game where the save statistic was not involved.
There you go.
Tony Mejia, what do you have for us as the final thought of our show?
Well,
And
I'm going
best
to say that I'm going to piggyback on what Tony Finn just told me with his spin rate info, because I honestly like the Marlins on this. But now I'm going to reverse, but I can't go Phillies for the bullpen, and I don't like Velasquez. Listen to some of the things, because I was looking this up. Honestly, this is the one baseball game that I knew I had to put in afterwards, and I was going Marlins. Starling Marte, 5 of 7 career against Velasquez. Jesus Aguilar, 375, a homer. Jazz Chisholm, 3 for 4. The guys have hit him well. Then you look at Rogers, McCutcheon, 571 with 2 homers.
McCutcheon.
Yeah,
right.
Reese Hoskins, 4 for 8, a homer.
And he's hot.
We've got Torreyes, 3 for 5. He's in the lineup tonight. Bryce Harper's in the lineup. I'm going, and then you throw in the Phillies bullpen as a bonus. I'm taking that over tonight. I guarantee it, because I really need to pick it up in baseball. I had a 6-1 stretch last week, and my weekend was 0-6. So I'm going with that. I also mentioned on the show, I'm giving out all my baseball stuff tonight. On the show, I'm definitely going Brewers minus the 1.5 against the Cubs. That line just seems very fishy to me. And then NBA, I'm going Kevin Herter, but over 2.5 assists. But did you see the juice on that, Rob? Minus 142 at FanDuel. And it's just, So you got to play it small. But the way they run that high pick and roll with him and Trey, and, if Trey's not 100, you run it with him and somebody else. He's a willing passer. He's over a defense. He had, I believe, 7 assists in Game 3. So maybe just a fishy number. But 2.5, too low a bar to not touch. So give me the over on Kevin Herter assists as well.
I'll give this. I want to throw in for you, Tony. The schedule. It's the first game of the series, but right now the information I got was that Rippinger is going to be the umpire, and he's not. Listen, I'd lean to him, calling him neutral, but he's more hitter friendly than he is pitcher friendly. So advantage umpire as well.
All right. We'll take it. I'm putting that in. That'll be one of my baseball picks for sure.
Love it. Well, as always, guys, thanks for being part of this really fun, increasingly fun show to be with. And we're gonna work on Rob Veno being less introverted and more extroverted. We're gonna get him set up with lessons with Joe D'Amico, and I think that's gonna help a lot with the quality of his voice going forward.
I think you just need to get him a mate, whether she's plastic or real, that talks back, so he practices conversing. And
after I conclude the show, I don't want you guys to hang up, because I have a secret to share with you about the show at Manny's Pub on Thursday at 4:00. 4:30 actually is when everything's going to hit the fan.
Free shots.
But it's going to be hilarious. At least I hope it's going to be hilarious, because I'm going to look like a complete fool, and I'll turn red in the face and probably
you're going to
tear
have
up
the
a little
Detroit
bit.
Tigers. You're going to have the Detroit Tigers.
A lot of moving parts in this, John, because I already know the secret, so I'll actually have to go. But you can tell the other guys, and I will be in the mix if I can be.
Excellent.
See you, Tony.
So,
good luck tonight, bud.
For Tony Mejia, Tony Finn, Rob Veno, myself, WagerTalk.com, and the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.
Good luck tonight.